Breaking news, new Fox News national polls just now being released shows Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump in a statistical dead heat in a four-way race. Hillary Clinton coming in at 44%, Donald Trump 42%, Libertarian Gary Johnson at 6%, and Jill Stein at 2%. The difference between Trump and Clinton is within the 3.3% margin of error. In a two-way matchup between Clinton and Trump, Hillary Clinton, she's got a 4-point lead, 48% to Donald Trump's 44%. And among independents, Donald Trump leads at 39% compared to 35% for Hillary Clinton, 11% for Johnson, and 4% for Stein. Arnon Mishkin is the Fox News Decision Desk Director, and he joins us now. All right, Arnon, the first thing that jumps out at you with this poll?
The first thing that jumps out at me is that Hillary Clinton has had a fairly good 2 weeks. She had a terrific week following the first debate. She had an okay week this week. Trump has had a really bad week last week, and he's had an okay week. I mean, to a certain extent, Pence, I think, slowed Clinton's momentum. What gets me, but I find very interesting, is she has not really gained in the numbers, despite the fact that she's had a fairly good 2 weeks. And
well, we've kind of seen this, though, right, where they both have ebbs and flows, but they seem to both have the support. If it was a stock, we'd say support and resistance, but they are within ranges, right? They have their own individual parameters. What is it going to take, then, for this to change before we get a decisive breakout?
That's a really good question. I was sort of expecting this past week for them to be a trend to a breakout, but you haven't seen that. What you have in this election are two candidates which the majority of Americans are kind of uncomfortable with for different reasons. Trump in the case of temperament, Hillary Clinton in the case of trustworthiness. They're uncomfortable with it. So it's really hard for either one of them to, after they prove that the other candidate is horrible or negative, to get people to come into their corner. And in the end, people are going to have to do that, but for the time being, they're refusing to take sides.
Now, when you look under the hood with this thing, there's something in here for both candidates.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so let's go with Donald Trump. To me, when I looked at it, the support for him, the strong support for him is at 70%.
Yes.
That's reflective, I think, of those gigantic crowds. I think it's reflective of the sort of enthusiasm that we know he has. Hillary Clinton only at 57%. You've been at this a long time. 57% strong support, is that enough to translate into voters showing up on Election Day?
It is enough to translate into voters showing up on Election Day if you have a very strong get-out-the-vote effort, which she does. There was some radio commentator who got laughed at because he said Trump doesn't need a get-out-the-vote effort, he has our hearts. But in a sense, he was right, because in a sense, Trump's enthusiasm may mitigate the fact that he really doesn't have as good a get-out-the-vote effort.
This has been one of these elections, though, that so far has defied conventional wisdom.
Yes.
And so I think that last hurdle with respect to conventional wisdom is that get-out-the-vote thing. Some dying-to-wool, old-school Republicans are just gnashing their teeth. They're upset. They're frustrated to that point. Is it possible that, once again, Donald Trump will defy the experts and people will show up in the numbers that he needs?
I think it's very possible. To me, the best news or the worst news for Clinton and the best news for Trump is that only about 55% of Americans think Clinton's going to win. The higher that number is, Trump is the candidate of change. The higher that number is, the more likely it is that people will feel, he's not going to be president. I know I have questions about his temperament, but I really want change, so I feel like voting for him.
So it's sort of a contrarian kind of thing?
It's a protest vote? Both. It's a contrarian and a protest vote. It's easier to make a protest if you think your protest won't count.
Really?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'll use that rationale somewhere down the line. What's more important? Knowledge for the job, temperament, honesty, or the larger issues?
That is an excellent question, because in terms of knowledge and temperament, roughly 2/3 of the voters in the new Fox News poll say that Clinton has the knowledge and she has the temperament to be president. And less than half of voters think that Trump has the knowledge or temperament to do the job. Nonetheless, those 2/3 of Americans who think she's got the knowledge and the temperament, fully 1/3 of them are not ready to vote for her. So that's a really good question. Now, in terms of honesty, actually both candidates in this poll are doing fairly poorly, with more than half of people.
Well, honesty and trust?
Yeah.
33% and 36% respectively. So They both have got some ways to go in a short period of time to shore that up.
Yeah, exactly.
ISIS, 52%. I think Donald Trump will destroy ISIS, 41%. That's probably, from what I could see from all the major issues, where he's got his largest, most decisive lead on her. Second would be the economy at 50%. These are two of the top-ranking issues, though, in this country at this moment. Obviously, we had the jobs report today. It was just a so-so number. And at any given moment, there's going to be some sort of attack, either around the world or even here at home.
And it is very possible that one of those attacks could cause a lot of people to go into the Trump camp. Because even though they may not think he's got all the skills to have a nuanced campaign, they think he has the aggressiveness to mount something very, very big, which may not be effective, but it may be a real opportunity for Trump.
You make anything of the independents kind of slipping for Trump and kind of going up for Hillary Clinton? Is that a reflection of people maybe who were thinking Johnson as an alternative, or does this reflect the last 2 weeks that you talked about?
I think it is reflective of some bouncing back and forth, but it is clearly the number we should be looking at over the coming 3 weeks. And we should also be looking at the Johnson and the Stein number to see if whether or not they are declining and whether or not there's any movement.
Did Johnson decline? I mean, he's had, I mean, it's just crazy. If he doesn't decline at this point, he's the ultimate Teflon candidate.
That's correct, but he's sort of at a low number. But right now he's safe harbor for someone who can't decide Trump.
4% of America is not going to vote for Jill Stein, right?
I don't think so.
Okay. Arnon, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Charles.